So we're back on the record, and we'll continue with the defense's case. The defense can call their next witness.
Judge, the defense is going to call Mr. Jim Pritchett.
Okay. Just watch your step as you're coming up here, and then when you get over towards the witness stand, if you could just put your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand for me. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, you can take your seat.
Thank you.
Sir. And once you're comfortable, can you tell us your full name and spell your last name, please?
It's James Pritchett. That's P as in Peter, R-I-T-C-H-E-T-T.
Okay. Sir, I'm just going to ask you to do me one favor. When you speak, please make sure you speak loud enough so that jurors number 15 and 16 can hear you, okay?
I'll try.
Okay. If not, I'll keep an eye on you, all right?
Thank you.
I got you. All right. Ms. Mastalone, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Pritchett. Can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Hi, good morning. I'm James Pritchett, but I go by Jim.
And are you currently working?
I'm retired now.
And what did you do before you retired?
Leading up to retirement, I was in B2B sales for an insurance company, and then before that, I ran a business for Morgan Stanley.
And even though you're retired, do you do any type of work currently?
I volunteer. I volunteer at a local community center. I chair a couple of committees and was on the board for a couple of years. I'm also a what's known as a CASA. It's a court-appointed special advocate for children in the New Jersey foster care system.
And what's your educational background?
I have an undergrad degree in psychology, and I have an MBA in finance and investments.
And who do you live with?
I live with my wife, Stacy.
Okay. I want to first talk to you about the Caneiro family. Do you know Paul Caneiro and his family?
Yes.
And other than Paul, who else is in his immediate family?
There's Sue, or Susan, his wife, and his daughters, Katie and Marissa.
And can you tell us a little bit about how you know them?
Yeah, I met them. I met the entire Caneiro family back in 1993. I started dating my wife, and she's very good friends with Susan. And so I started going to different functions that they were having, like different events. They had a barbecue, I think it was the first time. And, started hanging out with them over the summer on a pretty regular basis. And then at the end of 93, I was at their house for Christmas Eve.
Okay, and so 1993, approximately how many years is it that you know them?
Probably it'll be about 33 years, sometime in April or May.
Okay, so I want to talk to you a little bit about how well you know the Caneiro family. You kind of started to go into it, but can you explain to us how over time your relationship with Paul and his family developed?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time together. Stacy, my wife, was pretty good friends with Susan, if not best friends, and we would go and hang out with them. We lived in the city, they lived in New Jersey, so it was a good way to escape the city. And we just started talking about things. We had common background. We didn't, kind of blue collar growing up, and so, I grew up in the Bronx. They were from Brooklyn and Staten Island, and we just started hitting it off. So as I started becoming more friendly, it meant that, we were both going out and spending more time with them.
And what about your kids? Were your kids and close with the Caneiro kids?
Yeah, they're like family, I've known Katie since she was, 2 years old maybe. Marissa since the day she was born, and my girls have known them all of their lives. And given the amount of time that we spend with them, it's a family thing, I suppose.
And over time, what are the different types of activities you could tell the jury that, you and Paul and Susan and girls and your family, what kind of activities and things would you do, kind of get-togethers, things of that nature?
Lots of barbecues over the summer, I guess, as soon as, it starts off with kind of Katie's birthday, because she was end of April, all the way through the end of the summer, just being down, having barbecues. Sue and Paul seemed to always love to host, and we were happy to take advantage of that. We were down there so much, probably should have been paying them a rental fee for being there in the summer. Beyond that, birthday parties for all of our kids. We went on vacations together. Went to Spain. Went to our first trip to Disney with our girls was a joint trip with the families. And Hershey Park is another one where we had gone multiple times with them. Even actually taking Katie and Marissa at times where Sue and Paul didn't go. So.
And you mentioned earlier that you were living in the city. At some point, did you move to New Jersey?
We did. We moved after 9/11. We moved into town up in Union County.
Is this like 2001?
2001, yeah. Beginning of 2002, by the time we actually got to physically move in.
And once you moved to New Jersey, did you then see the Caneiro family even more often?
Probably every other week, it seemed like, and wasn't so much of an issue in terms of traveling and everything, especially for us back then. Being in the city made it a little bit harder to see them, but then we were able to just kind of jump on the Parkway and see them a lot more.
And would you consider yourself and your family close with the Caneiro family?
Yeah, we kind of think of them as an extension of our family. I mean, we have spent so much time with them.
And how do you refer to Katie and Marissa?
They're like our nieces in a sense, and I think that our daughters and Katie and Marissa think of themselves almost as cousins because they've spent so much time together. So.
And so it sounds like you saw them fairly often.
Yes.
During the occasions that you would see them, whether it's barbecue or a holiday, I'm not sure if you mentioned that. Did you spend Christmas with them?
Christmas Eve was kind of a tradition for us, I think, pretty much since 1993.
Did you know the Goulds?
Yes.
Okay. And so in light of the time that you've spent with the Caneiro family, whether it's barbecues, summers, weekends, holidays, did you have the occasion to also get to know Keith and Jennifer and their family?
Yes. When I first met Keith, it was actually at the Christmas Eve thing in '93, the get-together. And then eventually, once he and Jennifer started dating, I started seeing her more. And then, when Jesse and Sophia were born, we saw them as well, because they were over a lot with them, too.
Okay. And just to kind of tie it all together, what kind of events and holidays and get-togethers would you see Jennifer and Keith and the kids?
Well, they were there for the barbecues, too. They were there for different birthday parties. might have been at their houses for we had been at their houses for birthday parties for both Jesse and Sophia. They'd be over for Katie and Marissa's. So we would see them with that. You know, just basically every function that you could think of. I mean, it was kind of a close-knit circle, so, you know, we were always there.
Did you go to their wedding?
We did.
And so based on how well you knew the Caneiro family and how well you knew Paul, how would you describe Paul?
Paul is smart, level-headed, very loyal in a sense, and I guess giving. You know, he was always willing to lend a hand with different things, you know, either sharing an opinion or, hey, I need help doing something. He made himself available.
And how would you describe the relationship between Keith and Paul?
They were brothers, and they were really close. You know, I don't have a brother, but if I did, I would have loved to have had that type of relationship in terms of how close they were.
What about their bond? How would you describe their bond?
They were close, and it was kind of the Caneiro brothers against the world, whether it was just sitting there, you know, talking about something, you know, or having a discussion, or if they were, you know, in business, same sort of thing. Just, you know, them against the world. They were just really close and loyal to one another.
And what about Paul's relationship with Jesse and Sophia? What can you tell us about that?
I know Paul loved both of them. You know, like having grown up with daughters, you know, Sophia was just, you know, another beautiful little girl, and, you know, he loved Jesse. I thought that he was a calming influence on Jesse, and I don't know, it seemed like there was a special bond between the two of them, because he was really the only little boy out of the group, Paul and Susan having girls, myself having girls. He was the only kind of boy in the mix for a while, so.
Thank you. Now, focusing on a little bit of their business relationship, are you aware of the two businesses that Paul and Keith own together?
Yes.
And have you ever been to the business's location in Homedale?
Yes, I have.
And what about the one in Asbury?
Yes, I spent time there too.
And you mentioned you spent time there. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I had left Morgan Stanley in 2010. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. And Keith and Paul had offered me office space, and while I kind of figured out what I was going to do there. And so I got to spend significant time at both the Homedale office and at the Asbury Park office.
And when you were there, did you have the occasion to interact with Paul and Keith?
Yeah, on a pretty regular basis, I did.
And so how would you describe their business relationship?
It was good. They worked together. They complemented one another in terms of the skill sets. You know, they kind of understood that, again, I guess I said this before, but it was them against the world. They were going to do what they needed to do to figure out how to make the business work best and to be able to succeed.
And how would you describe Paul and Paul's way of communicating?
Paul's always been a bit more measured, level, kind of direct about it. He didn't, you know, he was more reserved, I suppose.
Was he more emotional versus logical?
No, he a lot more logical and even about things.
What about Keith's way of communicating with Paul?
Keith was animated in general. It was just kind of his style where, he would challenge a certain notion or presumption. If they were doing something with the business, he'd want to know, well, can you explain to me how this works or something? And, but it was like almost throwing down a gauntlet for responses to problem solve. So
was his approach more logical or more emotional?
it was more emotional. I mean, again, they were a good compliment from a business perspective on there. Like, he needed to have things proven to him, and he was going to let you. There was no mystery about what Keith was actually thinking from that perspective. It wasn't a negative. It was just different from Paul.
So, and since you've had the occasion to see a lot of their communications when you were present, of course, did you have the occasion to see any disagreements between the two?
Yeah, excuse me, yes.
And how would you describe those disagreements?
I think that I'd probably describe them as constructive conflict, because Keith would kind of put something out there and, it would be in his animated sort of way with everything on his sleeve, and Paul would sit there and listen to Keith and go through it and then kind of explain, well, here's why these things work over there. So again, kind of a complementary way that they communicated, and once they figured out the issue, it was good. I think it was just an interesting way. It's not as corporate, I would say. Like, having worked in the corporate world, every idea is great, even though it may not be, but, every idea is great and everybody's opinion matters. But you don't have that same sort of thing in a smaller business, and I think that they were really effective in that sense.
Okay, and as far as their relationship as business partners, how would you describe their partnership?
They were partners. They were equals, I guess. It was a 50-50 partnership in the sense of how they did the business. Paul might have been maybe a little bit more technical than Keith, but they were equals in the business, and that's the reason for a lot of the discussions that they had.
And to your knowledge, did one brother contribute more than the other? Because you're talking about equals, and notwithstanding ownership specifically, but more so just in the way that they handled the business day to day and the activities.
Jack, cost figures.
We're going to just ask a different question. All right.
When you were at the, you said this was around 2010, 2011 or so?
Yes.
And so when you were at the, and I think you mentioned you were renting office space or using office space?
I was using it, yeah.
Did you ever engage with Paul and Keith and discuss the businesses with them?
Yes.
And without saying what was said, can you just talk generally about, just the types of things that you guys would discuss with respect to the businesses?
I was getting ready to say typical, but discussions about whether or not how you finance certain things. Do you buy? Do you lease? How do you interface with the media on certain things for a business? What your approach would be to doing that. So public relations type things. Just different issues where there's two different viewpoints, but specifically, finance, marketing.
And so were you sitting with them in the same
Yes.
room having discussions?
Yes.
And were they asking for your opinion? Were you consulting with them?
They asked me what I thought, given some of the experience I had out in the business world. So you know, could be like, hey, is it better to just own something outright, or are we better off leasing and financing something, or, you know, as I was saying before, the issue of how do you interface with the media on certain things without getting too into detail. There was an issue of bed bugs, and there were different interviews going on, as an example of something.
You're talking about the pest control business? at that
Yes.
point? Okay. Now, so just based on like your observations during this time where you're watching the brothers communicate and watching them discuss the businesses, did it seem like they were taking like equal part in the conversation?
Yes, they did.
Okay. And based on what you were able to observe from the day-to-day while you were there, was it your impression that the brothers were working together? Was one brother doing more than the other, or were they doing
Jackson,
it?
Judge, the same question from before, and how do you know what time we're talking about?
And it's leading. So I'll allow you to ask a different question, but Mr. Decker is correct. Are we talking about 2010 and 11? I'm not really sure.
Right, during the time that you were there, at that time, and you were sitting with them and talking with them, the question is just how did you observe them as business partners as far as being equals?
Well, when there were issues that needed to be resolved, they relied on one another. They sat down and talked about how they should approach something. So just in that sense, it appeared to me that they were equals because they didn't make a significant decision without consulting with the other.
And based on your understanding, like what were the roles within the business?
Paul was, in my estimation, like he would have been like a COO or something, understood how the business worked, what the administrative ends of the business were, as well as some of the technical stuff.
And I'm gonna fast forward a little bit.
Okay.
So when Keith went back to school, how did Paul handle that situation?
He was good with it. I mean, it meant that he was doing a little bit more of the day-to-day because Keith was in school at class, but he seemed to be fine with it. I think he was happy for his brother for Keith because it was important for Keith to go to school, and he was going to Columbia, and so there was a lot of prestige with that. And Keith felt good about himself doing it, so. And I think Paul felt good for Keith at that point.
And so was Paul supportive?
Absolutely.
Fast forwarding a little bit more, after 2018, do you know who took over the businesses?
Jackson. Relevance.
Can I see the attorneys? 2018 is a pretty long amount of time. Ms. Massalone, when you're ready.
Mr. Pritchett, just a few more questions. So, I think the question we left off was, after November 20th of 2018, who took over Keith and Paul's businesses?
Corey Caneiro did.
And how do you, how soon after November 20th of 2018 did that happen?
Within days.
Thank you. Now, obviously, a lot of time has passed since 2018. Are you still close with the Caneiro family today?
I am.
Thank you.
Cross?
Thank you. Mr. Pritchett, how you doing?
Good, thank you.
Just want to ask you, those questions you were just asked, I mean, somebody had to take over the businesses, right? To make sure that people got paid and customers got serviced, correct?
Yes.
Correct. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you talked about, a couple of times, talk about how Keith and Paul were partners, right?
Yes.
They were partners in Square One, right?
Yes.
And also in EcoStar, right?
Yes.
And you also referenced when you said partners, you said 50-50, right?
Yeah, in terms of being equals, I don't know if there was partnership mix or anything like that. I just know that they behaved as equals.
Okay. They behaved as equals, correct? And are you saying you don't know who owned what with, let's just say, Square One in particular? Who owned what percentage?
No,
You don't know?
I don't.
Okay. And EcoStar, you don't know either?
No.
Now, you were talking about the Home Bell office, Square One, right? That was a while ago, right?
They were there in 2010.
Yeah, 2010. And then they moved to the Asbury Park office later, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So were you saying that you were using an office in just Asbury Park or in both?
Actually, both.
Okay. What year did you retire?
Officially last year in 2025.
Now, you were asking some questions about Paul being very level-headed, right?
Yes.
You said that, right? And you said Keith was more emotional, right?
Yes.
Kind of always knew what he was thinking based upon the way he interacted, correct?
Yes.
You said something about like he wore his emotions on his sleeve, right?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever, or strike that? Did you ever have the opportunity to view text messages or chats between Keith and Paul?
No.
Okay, you didn't read their messages, right?
No.
You didn't read the emails from Keith to Paul and Paul to Keith, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And you weren't privy to their phone calls, right?
No.
Each other.
No.
Okay, like you weren't overhearing Keith call Paul or Paul call Keith, right?
I might have, but nothing specific.
You described Mr. Caneiro, Paul Caneiro, as being loyal, correct?
Yes.
You also said at times he was always giving, right?
Yes.
Okay. Is it fair to say that you're not aware of any times that he was actually taking?
Objection.
I'm going to allow it.
I'm not sure I understand what you're asking.
Were you ever made aware of times when Paul Caneiro was taking financially from Keith Caneiro?
Objection.
I'm going to allow it.
No.
You said no?
I said no. I'm sorry.
Honestly, I just wasn't sure.
Somebody coughed. And it wasn't me this time.
Judge, I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Any redirect?
Judge, can we approach?
Sure you can.
Mr. Pritchett, the prosecutor asked you, whether someone had to take over the businesses, right? But it didn't have to be Corey, right? It could have been someone else.
Yes, in all honesty, I was a little bit surprised.
Sir, that's the answer to the question. It's either yes or no. Somebody else could have taken it over?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to strike the part after the word yes, it could have been somebody else.
And to your knowledge, over the course of the, let's say, starting in the 2000s, from 2000 up until 2018, like those 18 years, did Corey have anything to do with the business?
No. Corey had been brought in a couple of times, I know, by Keith and Paul into the business, but it didn't really work out, and they wind up having to let him go from that.
And was this prior to 2000?
Probably late 90s and then maybe early 2000s. I try to cut. There's a couple of instances.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
No, Judge, thank you.
All right, sir, you can step down. Thank you. We appreciate your time.